In this lesson, we're going to talk about how to assemble a texture in Photoshop. Alright, so we've unwrapped our UVs for our model, and we've also rendered out the UVW template that we're going to use in Photoshop. So to do this, let's go ahead and go into Photoshop, and let's make sure that we open up arcade_uvw.png. That is the file that we saved. To do this, we'll go to File and Open, and you should see this in your Images folder. So let me go ahead and just track this down for you. So inside of your Project Files folder, 3ds Max Files, Scene Assets, and Images, you'll see arcade_uvw.png. You'll also notice that we have GameRender and Title.psd. Go ahead and open those up as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to prepare our UV. So you'll notice it doesn't really appear to be anything, but there are these little green lines. We saved this out as a PNG, so anything that was black in that UVW render was transparent. So let's go ahead and place in just this black color on a new layer. So let's add new layer. I'm going to take this layer 1 and drag it below layer 0 and grab the paint bucket tool and paint that in. So here you can see the UVs, exactly what we had before. Alright, so now what I want to do is I want to start bringing in the game render and the title, and I want to start placing those onto our texture. So let's go to Game Render, let's grab the Move tool, and let's drag this onto our arcade_uvw.png, and we'll drop that. It's going to ask us if we want to go ahead and go forward with bringing this in because the target depth is different. We're going to say yes, and there we go. There's that one, and let's do the title. So we're going to left click and drag that in, and we'll drop that in. And yes again, and there we go. So now what we'll do is we're going to work with this render. What I want to do is I want to put this onto the side of our arcade cabinet. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this layer 0, double click on that, let's rename that to UVW. Let's also double click on this one and change that to BG, and let's put UVW on top. Perfect. So now we can see the outline of our UVs, and we know exactly how this is going to be placed. So on that render, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually bring this down, and what I see inside of my UV, okay, is what's going to show up on the arcade cabinet. And so I want a little bit more of the player character to show up inside of that arcade cabinet. And so what I can do is I can scale down that texture a little bit. But before I do that, let me hit Control J, and that's going to duplicate. Let's go ahead and hide the original render, and then let's go ahead and resize this image. So let's hit Control T to go to Transform, and then we're going to hold down Shift and drag from the corner, and you'll notice here that I can now see more of the player, and that makes a little bit more sense. Okay, we can see that, and we can see the gun, okay, kind of firing off, and that's pretty good. Let's go ahead and hit Enter. That's going to resize that for us, and we can make some subtle movements on this if we wanted to, and I'm going to leave it just like that. All right, that looks great. Now you'll also notice that inside of this area we have the tick that's being shot here. You'll notice that it's in this other area right here, and I don't necessarily want that. I'm going to actually cut this off for right now. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and left click and hold on our lasso. Let's use this polygon lasso, and I'm actually going to left click these points, and I'm going to select around the outside of that UV that I've already created. Okay, and let me hold Shift on this one, left click, and let me go around this, and let's end up right back where we started, and I'm just going to hit delete on that. Let's hit Control D to remove our selection. So now I'm just dealing with the player. I'm going to go ahead and position in another duplicate of that render, so let's unhide that. Let's go ahead and take this, let's hit Control J to duplicate it. Let's hide that original render. And then this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my Move tool, and I'm going to bring in the tick. And we're also going to transform that. So let's hit Control T, hold Shift, let's drag from this bottom edge this time. And we'll bring that in. We'll try to get it to be about the same size, but not exactly. And we want to make sure that we have enough information. We can see the tick there. It looks pretty good. I want to try to match the height of that, but we don't have to be absolutely perfect. We're not going to see these two together side by side, so I'm actually going to bring the tick in a little bit more. Just like that, so it's fitting inside there. All right, perfect. Let's go ahead and hit enter on that to end that, and then what we'll do is we'll use that polygon lasso tool again. I'm going to click right here, hold down shift, go down to the bottom, hold shift, go to the outside here, and then let's start right back where we began. So what I'm doing is I'm just selecting the information on this, and let's hit delete. Okay, notice that it doesn't get rid of our first texture because that's on a different layer. Then I'm going to hit Control D, and let me go ahead and just trim this off here. You don't have to trim this off because it's not within any UV space, but I like to keep clean. So let's go ahead and just delete that, Control D, and there we go. So that's what it's going to look like on our arcade cabinet. Now what we can do is we can actually take that title, and let's hit Control J to duplicate it, hide the original one there. And let's move this into position. So I'm going to put it right up here at the top of the arcade. Let's hit Control T, hold Shift, and also hold Alt, drag that down, and that's going to resize that. We're going to put the title of the game right up here at the top. Okay, so make sure that fits in there. You may have to size it up a little bit more. There you go. Hit enter on that. There we go. I'm going to hit Control J on that one, and then hold shift and just drag that across right here. So it's going to look exactly the same. Now, we're going to notice something with this text whenever we look at it in 3D space. It's actually going to be flipped around, but I'm going to leave it just the way it is so you can see that, and then we'll know how to fix it. So there we have that title text there, and then we have these areas right up here. So if you'll remember, this was the front of the arcade cabinet, so at the top of it and then at the bottom, so at the middle right about here. And then we had the top of the arcade cabinet where the buttons and things were, and we're going to place some things in there as well. So let's go ahead and make a duplicate of this title. So I'm going to hit Control J, and I'm going to place that right here. Let me zoom in. I'm holding down Alt and using the mouse wheel, and let's hit Control T. Let's hold Alt and Shift, drag that down, and let's place that in that UV space there. Hit Enter, and then Control J. I'm going to bring that up here, just like that. And then let's take another render, okay, of the original one. I'm going to hit Control J on that one, hide the original, and let's take this, let's move it up here. Let's hit Control T to transform that, hold Shift and drag that down, and we're going to place this right in this area here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to Control T, I'm going to make that a little bit larger and place it right there. Now I know that it starts getting into the rest of that, but we'll cut that off. So all we have to do is simply use like our marquee selection this time. Let's select around that what we want to delete, and we're just going to hit delete on that. Hit Control D, and there we go. So now it's no longer in that UV space of another object, okay, or another part of our object. So there we go. Let's also take one of those titles there, and we can actually go to our Move tool, hold down Control, and then left click on that, and that will select the proper one. Hit Control J and move that up. And let's put it right there in the middle, just like that. We could also, actually, you know what, let's delete that one. Let's hold Control, select this one, and then Control J, and move that up. Make it a little bit bigger, because it is right up on the main board where the joysticks and things are going to go. All right, perfect. So now that we have a texture, everything else is going to be black for right now. I'm not really worried about colors or anything like that for the joysticks or even the trim pieces of the arcade machine, because I'm going to use materials to define the colors of that. Now before we save this out, we need to go ahead and turn off our UVs, and we're going to say File and Save As, and we're going to save this as a PSD file, so that way we can come back to it very easily. And let's go ahead and call this arcade_diffuse and hit save. Now with that, In our next lesson, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to apply this as a texture to our arcade cabinet, and we'll get a little bit of an intro to materials inside of 3ds Max. So we'll get started with that next.